All right, welcome to the Good for Nothing podcast. This is episode 3. It's kind of been a slow news week. There's not much for me to talk about. We're getting like the Flash trailer and a few other trailers on Super Bowl Sunday, but as I'm recording this, it is Thursday. I always record these on Thursdays, which is kind of like the schedule I set up is a little bit not good because all the news seems to come out like Friday to Sunday, like in like the weekend, and I just completely screwed myself with the schedule. But we're gonna keep at it. It's gonna be fine. I'll just always be late. I'll always be late to the news, and that's just how it is now. So since the news is slow, I thought I would go over my guilty pleasure comic book movies. We all have them. We all know them. There's a few at the top that I don't know if they're considered guilty pleasures. I just know that they are widely considered either like mid or just not that great. Whether that be the ending messing it up or just people overall agreeing that they could have done better. But personally, I like them. So I'm going to go through those first, and then I'll get to the more controversial opinions. But before I do that, I just want to talk real quick about YouTube so far for me. If you guys don't know, which I'm going to assume anybody listening to this knows I have a YouTube channel or knew me from TikTok or anything, and they're just coming here. But if anyone happens to stumble upon this who doesn't, who's just like stumbling upon the podcast, I have a YouTube channel called Brandon Michael, Brandon MYT, and I've been trying to post consistently there, and it's been really good for me. Like mentally, it's felt very nice having something to do outside of work, outside of being lazy and playing video games, but like having something, like an activity to do outside of any of that is fun and gives me like a rush of feeling accomplished, I guess. I posted a Velma video, and I have almost 300 subscribers, which is absolutely nothing, but that video got nearly 4,000 views as of right now, and that's just an amazing feeling. Even though most of those people, like I think the statistic is like 20 of them subscribed, like 4,000 people saw a video that I made for YouTube, and like I've gotten more views than that on TikTok and everything, but TikTok feels like easy mode. I don't ever feel accomplished on that app. And even though I never like breached 10,000 followers or anything like that, even though I got a decent number, like 8,000, I never felt accomplished because I was just like recording myself for a minute at a time saying nonsense or giving an opinion that other people shared or other people didn't share, or showing off cool things that I bought, and then I would just post it and then just leave it there for a few days and see and come back later. But with YouTube, like I put in actual time, like I dedicate actual time to these videos, and I'll spend all night long gathering clips and pictures and editing them together to be somewhat fascinating so people don't lose interest, and it just feels very rewarding when people watch that and when I see like a certain thing got people to subscribe. So yeah, I'm just very grateful that I found something that gives me that scratches that itch in my brain, that really like gives me a sense of accomplishment. And like I've been trying to do YouTube since I was 13 years old. Like even before that I dreamed of it, but I've had channels since I was 13. I think I've gone through like 5 different channels, each channel having like anywhere from 1 video to 5 videos, and then giving up right after that. But as of right now, I'm actually like committing myself to it and posting, and I had posted several videos a few like maybe a year ago, and I privated a lot of them because I didn't like them very much, but 2 of them from like 8 months ago stayed up, and then recently I've just been posting more and more and trying my best to stay consistent. So yeah, it's just felt very good. Thank you guys if you guys watched it or subscribed to it, and thank you guys for checking out this podcast as well. But anyway, enough with the sappy crap. Let's get into my movie guilty pleasures as of right now. So the number one on the list that I'm like, people probably don't consider this necessarily a guilty pleasure, but it's Captain America: The First Avenger, right? Captain America: The First Avenger is personally my favorite Marvel movie ever made. I think it is fantastic. I think it screams comic book movie, like that's what it is at heart. Um, and I think a lot of people find flaws in it because the ending gets a little too wacky for the rest of the tone of the movie, and it feels a little bit like this movie is paced oddly. The beginning is a little bit slow to get to Captain America, to get to that version of Steve, and then it takes a while to get to the first time he actually goes out into the field. And then after that, it's like a breakneck pace. Right after that, we get a montage. We get a mission where he loses his friend. Spoilers, by the way, but this came out in 2011, so you should have seen it by now. But they go on a mission. Bucky dies, and then it's like the final battle, and the pacing is at a breakneck speed at the midway point, and then it's over. And Red Skull is a little bit like wacky, zany, he's a little bit generic, but this is a comic book movie through and through. This is exactly what I would have wanted from Captain America. And the funny thing is, when it came out in 2011, I believe that would have made me 9 years old, right? And my family had told me, oh, we're gonna go to the movies. A new Marvel movie came out, and they were just like, you like superheroes, so you'll enjoy it. And then they told me it was Captain America, and I was never that unenthusiastic about seeing a movie in my life. I was so underwhelmed by what they told me we were going to go see. I was so sad. I was like, this is going to be so boring. And when I first saw it, I fell in love. And that was the first movie I ever bought. And since I've kind of collected a decent Blu-ray collection, but that was the first one I had ever bought with allowance saved. I made my dad bring me to Toys R Us when those were still around, and I bought Captain America, and I kept it on repeat because I just loved it so much. And I loved Chris Evans in another movie that I'm going to talk about later in the video. But I just think that he's great as Captain America. I think everyone is great, especially the actress Haley Atwell, who plays Peggy. That was a certain type of awakening for me. God, oh wow. Anyway, Haley Atwell, she's great. She's a great actress. I hope she gets to return as Agent Carter. A version of her that doesn't die immediately and is actually capable of anything. But I don't know. I think it's just a fantastic time. And again, Chris Evans was always known for being a douchebag, and right before he was casted as Captain America, he came out with this movie Sunshine, which is about a group of I believe it's a group of scientists or something like that who have to go and restart the dying sun, and he plays this the American guy, and he is very adamant about getting the job done. So I've heard that his casting as Captain America was met with little to no backlash because of that movie coming out so soon before his casting announcement. So everyone was on board, and they couldn't have done better. But prior, he was in Not Another Teen Movie, and he was in the Fantastic Four films, where he just played this narcissistic douchebag. So for me, I didn't know what to expect as a kid, and he just completely encapsulated the character of Captain America, and he made him so much cooler later on down the line in the films that followed. But in this one, he really is just the true American hero. He's by the book, and he's constantly saying, "I can do this all day." He doesn't pull his he doesn't run from a fight. And I love the little montage in the middle where It's like one of two montages. The second one is when they're taking out all the Hydra bases, and it's really cool. But the first one is showing him and his success. And I guess I didn't understand this as a kid, but like on countless rewatches after, like he was like a movie star in that time. Like he starred in all these war propaganda movies, and he punched Hitler in the jaw thousands of times on stage to sell bullets and to the military and all that stuff. Like he was a literal celebrity, and I never realized that. Like I always thought he was just in the military, and that was really it. But it's really cool to see that side of Captain America. And of course, during that time, he 100% lost his virginity. That's been confirmed. She-Hulk confirmed it. So you can do with that what you will. It wasn't to Agent Carter though, unfortunately for him. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more to say about it. It's just a great film, and I'll never understand the hate for it. I think that it's unjustified. Because again, it's one of my favorite. It is my favorite MCU movie to ever release. I think it's consistent, and again, the entire cast is great. But I'm just going in circles now. And the second is actually another MCU movie that I think is not appreciated at all, and that's Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is once again a comic book movie. You know, it is pure schlock. Like it is just a fun time from beginning to end, and it focuses a lot more on Tony Stark and his struggles after the first Avengers. I think this takes place like pretty much right after the first Avengers film, maybe a few movies in between, but I don't think so actually. But yeah, it shows his struggle, and it adapts a few key character traits from him, like his alcoholism and his social, like not social anxiety, but his like crippling anxiety with that comes with the job. And I think that the main reason that people hate this movie is because of the trailers, supposedly. But again, this movie came out when I was 10 or 11 years old, and I didn't watch trailers back then. I just saw movies when I saw them. And then I don't even think I saw Iron Man 3 in the theaters, so I completely skipped over it. And then I did a rewatch of everything, and I put that movie on, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't get those trailers that sold it as this dramatic, like super dark MCU film, the darkest one yet. So I didn't go in expecting that. And I just had a fun time with it. And I think Robert Downey Jr. is at his best in this movie. Like his best version of Tony Stark is in this movie. And I stand by that. There's a few plot points I don't care for. Like I don't know if the Iron Patriot stuff was really necessary, but of course Rhodey has to be in the movie. I think that as it's been pointed out several times, and in like a super popular YouTube channel pointed out how it should have ended, that the plot is inherently The Incredibles. It is The Incredibles, but that's not really a bad thing. It's adapting a great movie and turning it into an Iron Man film. That's fine with me. Harley Keener, he's fine. He serves his purpose in the movie. It's fine. But another huge point of contention is the Mandarin twist, which has been fixed. You know, it was fixed in the Marvel one-shot, and then it was fixed even later on in Shang-Chi, where that version of the Mandarin returns, Peter Slattery. I think that's his name. I might have just butchered that, but either way, he returns, and all is good and well in the Mandarin land. But at the time, hardcore Iron Man fans were, rightfully so, you know, upset with what they did, because they had this like perfect representation of the character, right? Like the actor they casted, the look, the costume design, everything was spot on. It looked fantastic. Comparison to comics, it was like one for one. And then it turns out he's just like this bumbling buffoon, this actor that just got a paycheck to do this. And then the actual Mandarin, or quote unquote Mandarin, calling himself the Mandarin, is Guy Pearce, this like handsome gentleman in a white suit with slick backed hair and a face that I want to punch so bad. He has one of the most punchable faces in Hollywood. I stand by that. He looks Oh my god, I remember seeing him. I think it was in the movie Bedtime Stories with Adam Sandler. I think he's in that movie. That came out when I was a child. I wanted to punch him then. I want to punch him now. He has the most punchable face in Hollywood as far as I'm concerned. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, most of the Iron Man villains have punchable faces. Just very punchable faces. Guy Pearce. What's the other one? Who was in Iron Man 2? Not Whiplash, but the other guy who was in the way, way back. His name is drumroll. His name is something. You guys know what I'm talking about. I want to punch him in the face. He's got a punchable face. And then I think the least punchable face in those movies is Jeff Bridges. But even then, I kind of want to punch him in the face. So, also, they call Thor the dude, in Endgame. But if Jeff Bridges is in Iron Man 1, then that movie wouldn't technically exist in the MCU. So that doesn't, you know what? That's fine. Anyway, Iron Man 3 is a good movie, and I stand by that. It is fantastic. I think it just got way too much hate for that twist and everything. It's just very upsetting. Very, very upsetting. But next, the one that I think is straddling the line between guilty pleasure and actually just a decent film is The Wolverine, the second Wolverine solo movie, where we see him in Japan and he fights, I think is it Silver Samurai, is that his name? I mean, I would think so. It's kind of just like a obvious name since he's silver and he's a samurai. But that movie is good. It's a good movie. Now I know that it ends with a giant CGI battle and it doesn't match the tone of the movie that was going on prior to that ending. But there are so many superhero movies now that end that exact same way that people love, that I think it's time that we look back at the Wolverine, and we give it credit. We give credit where credit is due. I get Logan is better, but the Wolverine is genuinely very good. And I didn't see this movie until very recently, like maybe 2 years ago. 2 years ago, in the year 2020, when I was watching the most movies I had ever watched because of quarantine and all that stuff, I put this movie on, and genuinely I enjoyed it. And I watched it through the lens of current day, like modern day Marvel movies and everything, where every single one of them ends in a giant CGI battle that didn't make much sense. And when I watched it in that way, I completely enjoyed this movie more than I enjoy most Marvel movies. I think it's fantastic. And of course, Hugh Jackman is always going to be great as Wolverine, and I'm so happy that he's returning for Deadpool 3, because I can't get enough of this guy as Wolverine. And this movie is such a step up from X-Men Origins Wolverine, and I think maybe that's why this movie suffered more than it should have, again, because it was following one of the worst X-Men movies, Wolverine movies we could have ever gotten. Just absolutely atrocious. That's not on my list of guilty pleasures, I'll tell you that much right now. Definitely 100% not on this list at all. And I think that, like, the action scenes in this movie as well, especially the train action scene where he's fighting everyone on top of the bullet train, it's just so cool. The spectacle is fantastic, and he loses the adamantium at one point, which is, typical Wolverine story in these movies. He always has to lose it somehow, and he always has to get it back eventually, but in the process he gets hurt and he realizes that his healing factor is more of a benefit to him than he thought, and it's just always the same. But there's several X-Men movies and such that do that, so you can't fault this movie for doing the same thing. It's just enjoyable. It's an enjoyable superhero film. And all three of these movies so far are like the epitome of comic book to me. Like they're not grounded in the real world like The Dark Knight, or like as much as the MCU is not grounded in the real world, like The Winter Soldier, where that one is a little bit more realistic in the way that they explain things, and there's not really anybody super powered within it. These are comic book movies, and they read like comic books, and I think that is a genuine benefit that people don't realize is a benefit. It's a great time. All three of them. So now we're getting into the three or technically four movies that are genuinely guilty pleasures of mine, and I'm gonna save a certain uh what's the word for two of them? Dual dual Duology. I don't think that's the word. This is definitely easier than I'm thinking, than I'm making it. Anyway, I'm gonna save those for the end. But first and foremost, let's talk about The Amazing Spider-Man. I know, and a lot of you actually are definitely gonna agree with me because The Amazing Spider-Man have found new life, and for like the past few years because of TikTok and people not appreciating the MCU Spider-Man and going back to the next thing that was after Tobey Maguire. The Amazing Spider-Man films have gotten so much praise and have found so much new life. It's shocking. So Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man came out in 2012, same year as the first Avengers, and at that time I was 10 years old. So a new Spider-Man movie, 10-year-old me loves the Raimi trilogy at the time, has all the action figures. I am looking forward to this. This is the movie for me. I am so excited. I go see it. I love it. Even though it's dark in tone, it's very different from anything we've seen before Spider-Man wise. It's literally just The Dark Knight, but Spider-Man. I still love it. I think Andrew Garfield is cool as Peter Parker, and since I'm 10 years old, I want to be just like that dude who's skating around taking pictures, who gets the hot girl with the blonde hair. I want to be that guy. That's who I want to be. So I like this movie. And that's my little kid brain. But because of nostalgia, I still like it. Now, I recognize that it's not very good. I recognize that it's kind of boring, and a lot of it doesn't make sense, and Peter Parker is genuinely a stupid idiot in this movie. He's supposed to be really smart, but he's just a stupid idiot, to the point where he leaves his camera just, webbed up in a sewer with his name on it so that the bad guy can find it and find out that that's who he is and go to his high school and attack him. That's how stupid this version of Peter Parker is, right? But I still like it. I still like this movie because it just itches a scratch in my brain. Now, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, no, don't like that movie. Did not have the same experience with that. That is not any form of nostalgia for me. I hate that movie. That movie is garbage. It's trash garbage, and it makes me very upset that so many people love it. So many people praise The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but not The Amazing Spider-Man. Why? This movie is better. This movie is better than 2. The only reason you praise number 2 is because the suit is cool. That's it. Everything else is bad, especially his accent. What is that accent? Yeah, I got left a briefcase. It's got a bunch of junk in it. I can't even do the accent. That's how bad it is because I'm not capable of doing an accent that bad. So, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is bad. The Amazing Spider-Man 1, also bad, but that's a guilty pleasure because I like it. And Andrew Garfield is cool and he does some skateboard tricks. And that's the movie that got me to skateboard. I'm not very good at skateboarding, but that's why I skateboard, from that movie. Now, if you are my friends and you're listening to this podcast, you did not know this fact about me. You did not know that I enjoy this movie. So, I'm sorry that I had to tell you through podcast format. But this is just, I can't lie. I'm not going to lie. You never asked if I liked this movie. So I just never said anything. So I apologize. But actually I don't, because I never lied to you. I just never said it. But yes, good movie. Andrew Garfield, not good movie. Anyway, Andrew Garfield's cool. Emma Stone is genuinely a pretty great Gwen. I like what she does with that character. I think the Lizard is not great. I think that he's very corny and his plan is very bad. But again, it's a very comic book plan. I'm going to turn the world into lizards. And here's another here's something that a lot of people don't talk about with that plan, right? His lizard formula works for only an extended amount of time. He always turns back into Dr. Connors. He's never the lizard for a permanent amount of time. So if he sprayed that mist over the entirety of New York, after like a day of everyone being lizards, would they transform back into people, and just like a few years later they'd be like, hey, you guys remember that one time that we all turned into lizards and we all just like kind of like did nothing because we were all lizards? We just kind of ran around eating a bunch of food because we were hungry and we were old, big, scaly lizards, but now we're just normal again and we'll never be lizards again. You guys remember that? That's pretty much what would happen, no? Am I misremembering the ending of that film? Like did he perfect the formula so that they would be permanently lizards, or is my assumption correct? Tell me. It's somewhere. If this is YouTube, tell me in the comments. If this is Spotify, I don't know how you'll tell me. Is there a comment system on? I don't know. Either way, guilty pleasure film. I like it. But next up is a movie that I think is a lot of people's guilty pleasure because of how comic booky it truly is. Now that's the big through line. Besides like 3 of these movies, the rest of them, the through line is that they're just very cheesy, and you know, it's just like they read like comic books, and that is Batman Forever. Now, despite Robin being a 25-year-old man and being the same height as Batman and getting adopted, I don't know if he's definitely not playing 25. He's definitely playing a teenager, but you know, the actor was 25 and he was adopted as a 25-year-old as far as I'm concerned, which is very goofy. Despite that, I think that Val Kilmer, it was a great choice for Batman. He had the look. I think he played the stoic Batman pretty well. Now, I don't think he brought the most charisma and charm to Bruce Wayne. I think he could have done much better. But to be fair, this was a continuation of the Michael Keaton films, and Michael Keaton never really fully embraced the duality of Bruce Wayne and Batman. So Val Kilmer was kind of stuck playing Batman, but also trying to play Michael Keaton's version of Batman, and not completely able to make it his own thing. So I'll give him a pass for that. I think Val Kilmer was a very charismatic actor in his prime, and he could have done a very, very good job under other circumstances. But either way, I think he did a pretty good job when he was in the costume. But he is very horny in that movie. He is obsessed with the girl. Is it Vicky Vale? I don't know if it's Vicky Vale, but he is obsessed with her. He is constantly like popping a bulge in that costume. He's like giving her the eyes. He's like, oh, I just want to kiss your face. He's got his lips puckered constantly because that's the choice he made when he was in the cowl for some reason, and it's very horny. I don't know why they made him so horny. It's very uncomfortable to watch, actually. But despite Batman being an absolute horn dog, I quite enjoy it. Now, Jim Carrey, not a good Riddler. Tommy Lee Jones, not a good Two-Face. They are both just playing the Joker. Not sure why they did that, but either way, they're better than Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. So I give them both a pass. I give them both an okay, and they fit the vibe that the universe was going for. So I think it's fine. And then Chris O'Donnell as Robin is absolutely nothing. It's absolutely garbo. The best thing going for him in that movie is the Robin costume. I think besides the nipples and the R on his face mask, it's one of the best Robin costumes we've ever seen. And like the way they put it together is just fantastic. And the shades of green and red that they used and the shine to it. Like I have the hot toy right now, like looking at me in the face in my shelf, like sitting right next to me. And I'll tell you what, it's one of my favorites with like shelf presence. Like it looks fantastic. The suit is it's beautiful. But that's the best thing going for it, because the actor is not great, and he's not Dick Grayson. He doesn't have the charisma of Dick Grayson. They try, like they try to make him snarky and make him a little bit like lighter than Bruce, but he just comes off as, well, a dickhead. He's just like a douchebag, and that's not really Dick Grayson at all. He's not really a douche. He's kind of just a lighthearted big brother, but that's not what this version is at all. But like, I don't know. I haven't said anything really positive about this movie. Something is just like, it makes me want to watch it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the aesthetic. I don't know if it's the nostalgia. There's nothing like great in this movie. I just don't hate it. I just enjoy it. I watched it fairly recently, and it was just like very nice to have on while I was doing other things. Like, I think I was posing my Hot Toys, and I think I was like cleaning my room, but every time I would look at the TV, I would like get distracted by this movie. And maybe that's why. Maybe I just have some like rose colored like lenses on when it comes to it because of childhood and all that. But to be fair, like when I was a kid, I would constantly make my dad watch this movie with me, and I didn't know at the time, but like he hated it because this movie isn't for everyone, and he grew up with Michael Keaton and Adam West, and then suddenly this movie was like, they tried to combine both of them, but it didn't work, and he absolutely hated it. He hated the Batmobile, he hated everything, but he always watched it with me because I wanted to, and I loved Robin. So I guess I have like fond memories when it comes to that movie because of those reasons. But it's just like, oh man, there's not really anything too great about it. It's just kind of there. But let me get to my final two guilty pleasure superhero movies. My favorite bad comic book movies of all time. And that is 2005's and 2007's Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four: The Rise of the Silver Surfer. I am including these as one because I love both of them, and I watch both of them back to back. I can't watch one without watching the other. I love these movies. They are so bad, right? These are bad films. They it is early 2000s to the max. They are cheesy. They over-rely on Jessica Alba's body to sell these movies. Most of what happens is because of the team and their arrogance and their ability to not be a very good team. That is the plot of both movies. But I still love them. I still love them so much. And these movies are what set Chris Evans as one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he's so cool. I think he is the perfect Johnny Storm. The only thing I wish is that they didn't give him a crew cut, because then he would have been even better. But I think, you know what? Here's my theory, actually. I think this being in 2005, they tried to give, this is like headcanon / theory. They tried to give him frosted tips. They tried to like have that hair he had in not another teen movie, but they gave him frosted tips, and it looked terrible. So they were just like, shave his head. He's going to have a crew cut in this movie because of how bad the frosted tips look. He's not Justin Timberlake, take it off. And that's the theory that I have. I stick with that. I stand by it. That is absolutely what happened. That is why he has a crew cut. Johnny Storm has never had a crew cut in any other thing, but that's absolutely why he does. But anyway, let's get back to why I enjoy these movies. So, Fantastic Four 2005, the first one, is considered the worst in from both of these. Like it's the worst of the two. Rise of the Silver Surfer has always been considered the best. Personally, I prefer the first one. I think the first one gets the team dynamic extraordinarily well. You know, like Johnny and Ben have a very good budding friendship, and I think that they do the best that they can with the screen time that they were given. And that's obviously credit to the actors. Like Michael Chiklis and Chris Evans are the two best actors in this movie. Like they love these roles, and you can tell. Like Chris Evans is just charismatic as Johnny Storm, and he gives it his all. And then Michael Chiklis was a genuine fan, and he's actually the reason that The Thing was done practically. They weren't going to do that, but he insisted on getting this as accurate as possible, and I think that it pays off. I think it looks very good, and I think the CGI would have dated these movies way more than they already are with all the 2000s nostalgia, but I think it really would have dated these movies, and he's the reason that they're not as dated as they should be. But their chemistry is off the charts. I think I like them a lot. Jessica Alba is decent as Invisible Woman. You know, they only got her because she was, you know, one of the biggest actresses at the time, and she had the looks, and even though they put her in whiteface and a wig, they casted her because she was a big name in Hollywood at the time. And then, what is the name of Reed Richards, the actor? Is it Lone Griffard? I might have just butchered that, but that sounds right. They tried to make that guy like a leading man, and it didn't work out completely. He was probably the least interesting and had the least to do out of the main four. And he didn't really pull off Reed Richards as best as he could, but I think he had the look. Like, you know, I think he looked like Reed as much as he could, and I think that he did give off, you know, arrogant a-hole. So in that fact, he did a pretty decent job as Reed. So I give that a pass. Obviously the costumes, they're perfect. You know, they look how they should. They adapted them from the comics very well. The color, the blue is a little bit more navy than you know, like baby blue. But I think for live action costumes, they are as accurate as you can get. And they're not over designed, which is something that I have to give them a lot of credit for. The MCU is known for over designing things, and most recently with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania coming out, those suits are disgusting to look at. The lines and the extra details they added, they're not good at all. And with these movies, even comparing to the Reed Richards that appears in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that suit, as much as I like it, it's over designed. You know, there's random lines, the textures are very distracting. The amount of black that they put on the suit is just far too much. They put like random square boxes of black down his arms, and I just think that it looks a little cheesy, whereas in the original it's bare bones. You know, like it is the Fantastic Four costume. It has the lines that it's supposed to have and nothing more. That's what it is. Here you go. And I really appreciate that, and I think that we need more superhero costumes like that. We need more simple costumes that represent the old comics, because they had to draw them simple for inking and coloring and printing. And I think more superhero suits should be like that, because it's just it translates to the screen so well, in my opinion. Like they look good. If I were to ever get a Fantastic Four costume, I would get those. And I hope and pray to the Hot Toys gods. This is like the third time I'm bringing up Hot Toys, but I love them. I hope and pray that we get Hot Toys for these eventually, like an anniversary. These movies are not big enough or popular enough to justify Hot Toys to make these. They're definitely just going to make the MCU versions when they come out, but please, just give me the 2005 Fantastic Four Hot Toys. I beg you. That would be my grail pieces. Like, I would buy those instantly, and those would be the things that I would be excited for most. Please give me those. Like a rubber, like 1/6 scale thing next to Johnny Storm. Oh my god, I would love it so much. And then I could like pair them up with like my other MCU figures and see how they would look. And oh, you know what? I could, when I get my Tobey Maguire from No Way Home figure, and then I would buy a Hugh Jackman Wolverine and put them all on the same shelf and have like my early 2000s Marvel figures. It would look so cool. But that will never happen, so I'm hyping myself up for figures that'll never get made. But but yeah, I think the first movie is great. What was I saying about it? So Doctor Doom, one of the best Marvel villains ever. That I will give them. I will give the haters this. They don't do Doctor Doom very well in any of the Fantastic Four movies, and this one is not an exception. You know, they give him weird like lightning powers, and I think they did that to like justify why the team would have so much trouble with him, because they're all like superpower and they'll have their own abilities. And if it was, I think they tried to justify that if it was just one guy, like any one of them could have taken them out on their own. So they had to give him like these lightning powers and make it so he had metal in his skin or whatever it was, and that's just not necessary. You know, Doctor Doom is a threat in his own, and if you really wanted to make him if you really wanted to justify him being a threat, you could have introduced Doombots. I think an early draft of the script even had Doombots within it, and they didn't even do like Latveria or anything like that. So Doctor Doom was not great, and he came back for the second one, and if they made the third movie, he would have come back for that, even though the second one kind of killed him again. But the actor had signed a 3-picture deal, so that kind of spoiled the fact that he would be returning once again for the third film. But yeah, I think Doctor Doom was not done very well. But one of my favorite parts with the first film is how it shows the Thing and his struggles with becoming the Thing. I think it nails that. You know, like now there are some dumb things that happen. No pun intended. There is some dumb stuff where he like goes to see his girlfriend or fiance at the time, and she rejects him. And then after the whole fiasco on the bridge, she comes back and just to look at him and put the ring on the floor, right? But that goofiness kind of leads to a cool moment between him and I think it was Johnny or it was Reed, where like the Thing can't pick up the ring because he has like these giant massive fingers, like each finger is like the size of a hand, and he just can't pick it up, and one of them picks it up and places it in his hand and like helping him, and it's just a sweet moment between two friends. And he's like really down on himself about becoming this monster, and it's a sad story. He even like does like a Ninja Turtles thing at one point where he dons a trench coat and a fedora, classic Ninja Turtles disguise. And I really like that, and I think the Thing is just done really well, and it shows that Michael Chiklis knew his stuff and wanted to do the best he could in these movies. He's definitely one of the best parts, alongside Chris Evans, as I said. Again, just like Andrew Garfield in The Amazing Spider-Man, Chris Evans is who I wanted to be as a kid. I wanted to go snowboarding and flirt with a cute nurse. It's just all I wanted to do. I think you guys are obviously seeing like a through line of what characters I'm drawn to and like what characters I wanted to be growing up. But like, you know, who didn't want to be the cool skater / snowboarder with superpowers? You know, like what guy didn't want to be that guy? Like if you saw those cast of characters and you were like, you know what, I want to be Mr. Fantastic. I want to be Reed. I don't want to be Johnny Storm. You're kidding yourself. There's no way. Every single one of us wanted to be Johnny Storm, and every single one of us who grew up with Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man wanted to be Andrew Garfield. That's just a fact. And if it's not, you can shoot me on the spot. I don't care. But yeah, I like the first movie, and then the second one, I genuinely I don't like as much. I think it takes away from a lot from what I liked in the first one. Now that's not saying I hate this movie. I think, like I said, it's part of the guilty pleasure. Like I watch both of them. I can't watch one of them. But I think the Silver Surfer is really well done. My least favorite part is that Galactus is a big cloud. And I didn't even notice as a kid that it was Galactus, but as I grew up and I rewatched, I was like, oh, so Galactus is supposed to be the cloud. And then I saw that like the cloud was like an outline of his helmet. And I was like, wow, how did I never see that? That's insane. I never saw that. That's so stupid. But I will say my favorite part about the second film is that they realized Chris Evans was the best part, and they like made that movie focus completely on him. That movie is like Johnny Storm and the gang. Like, he gets all the cool action scenes, he gets the awesome chase scene between him and Silver Surfer, and then in the end he's the one who gets all their abilities to take out Doctor Doom. Like, this is the Chris Evans show with guest stars Reed, Sue, and Ben. Like, I know I said Chris Evans and then I said the character names, whatever. That, you get my point. Like, and you would think that would make this movie my favorite, since that's my favorite character and like one of my favorite actors in the spotlight. But I do like the team dynamic of the first one more, and I like them discovering their powers and, you know, not completely knowing what to do with them and trying to get rid of them. But I don't know. It's just funny that Chris Evans is like the main focus, and once again, Reed is like the weakest part of the movie. He's not really much. He's just kind of like a stale guy in these films. He's not the smartest man alive. They try to tell you that he is, but I don't believe it. In this movie, he has a bunch of drama, and he like is like cheating on Sue, but not really. But like this is his bachelor party, but he's like grinding on other women. It's so weird. It's very odd. I don't even, when I watch these movies, I barely pay attention to the Reed and Sue stuff. I just look at the Thing and Johnny, and I have a great time. That's really why I enjoy these films, because now that I'm thinking about it, like, the Reed and Sue stuff is just annoying. So that's really all my guilty pleasure comic book movies. There's a few others in there, but I just didn't talk about them, and I couldn't think of them. These are the ones I could think of off the top of my head that I genuinely enjoy. But yeah, Fantastic Four, man, I love them so much. They're so cheesy and just all around not very good, but I don't know, I appreciate them. But anyway, I want to move on into the what have I been watching / reading category of the podcast. So I got the hopefully you guys don't hate me, but I got the Harry Potter game. I'm about 3 hours in. I've been taking my time and like not even just exploring. I've just like been playing it on and off, and like work and a bunch of other stuff's got in the way. But I've played like 3 hours of the game, and it's pretty fun. It's a little overwhelming to me. There's a lot of different tabs, and it is like is it an RPG? I think it's an RPG. And I've noticed that RPGs overwhelm me a lot in the beginning, because there's just so many different upgrade trees and quests and side quests and things to collect, and I'm just like, where do I start? How do I do this? And the worst part is, like, when it comes to linear games and such, I am a completionist, so I will go into every nook and cranny, and like when it, like Uncharted and The Last of Us, I'll crouch walk through every section, hitting every corner, trying to find every collectible. And if I get to the end of the game and I realize that I didn't get everything, I will literally beat myself up about it, and I'll be like, how did I miss this? This is so stupid. So with like role-playing games and that are like giant open worlds where it's kind of impossible to get everything unless you dedicate like 50 to 60 hours to it, it overwhelms me and stresses me out, and that's kind of where I'm at with this game right now. So I'm trying my best to just tell myself to beeline the story and do some side quests and then be done, because if I don't do that, I'll be so obsessed and I'll beat myself up, and I'll be like, I need to get this platinum even though I don't want to. But it's pretty fun. The character creator is very nice, and the story so far is pretty interesting. I like the Harry Potter movies. I'm not a super fan of the series at all. I just thought it looked cool, so I got it. And the combat is much better than I was anticipating. The videos make it look a little boring, but when you're actually playing, it's pretty fun with all the spells you can do and the spell variations, and like grabbing someone and keeping them floating midair while you hit them. And the counter system is pretty nice. It's just an all-around pretty fluid combat system. And I'm a cutscene fanatic, and a lot of people don't usually prefer cutscenes because they take away from gameplay. But personally, when I'm playing a story game, that's some of my favorite parts, like seeing the cinematic cutscenes and taking in the full story of it all. I personally love it. Like I will watch game movies on YouTube for hours. Like even though I've already played The Last of Us, I will go and watch a game movie about it just of the cutscenes. Like I love cutscenes, and this game doesn't have many of them, if at all. Like the cutscenes are in gameplay, where it's just your character models kind of standing there talking back and forth sometimes, and then it'll cut to an actual cutscene every now and then, but rarely. That's not really a fault of the game. That's what RPGs usually are. There's not like cinematic cutscenes because of like the character that you create and such. Um, but I just had to bring that up, that I'm personally a fan of cutscenes and there's not many in this game. But overall, I've been having a pretty fun time with it. I think it's pretty decent. It's a pretty decent game. I'm excited to get like the broomstick and such. I haven't gotten that yet, but I've heard it makes the game even more fun with being able to fly everywhere. So that's pretty exciting. Um, but outside of that, I don't really have much more to say about the game. It's just pretty fun. And you know, it's unfortunate with all the boycotting that it's been getting and all the backlash, because realistically, she, who shall not be named, doesn't really have anything to do with this game outside of creating the world that it takes place in. And the developers who spent countless hours on this, like 5+ years working on this game and making it as good as it is, they don't share the same perspective that she has. They don't share the same beliefs, and they spent like countless hours, and they probably went through crunch and everything, and people are just not supporting the game. But secretly they are, because this game is selling incredibly well, and it's like the most watched game on Twitch ever. So everyone who said they're not buying it is just watching it on Twitch and you know, like making it popular. So I think people are secretly buying the game and not admitting that they're secretly buying the game. But that's a topic for another time. Overall, it's pretty good. I just hope that people can look past, you know, the creator of the world it takes place in, because that's not who created the game. You're not supporting her, you're supporting the developer and the people who work there. That's just how it is. That's the reality of the situation. Excuse me. And then outside of that, I've been going pretty crazy with my collecting journey. I mentioned Hot Toys a lot throughout this episode, but it's always been like a dream of mine to have a pretty nice Hot Toy collection. I've been looking at them since I was a little kid. Like I was looking at Spider-Man 3 Hot Toys of Tobey Maguire, where you could like switch out his clothes and such. So recently I've gotten like super into the hobby, and I bought my first one in 2020, and from that I got like four Hot Toys throughout that year. And then in the last month I've gotten 4 more. So this last month I have gotten more Hot Toys than I've ever gotten prior, and I'm still getting more. Like I'm getting another one in the mail soon. It's the Sonar Suit Batman from Batman Forever. And then I'm probably gonna go to the toy store after I record this podcast and go look at more and possibly buy another one, but we'll see. It's just really fun. It's really cool to have these like little works of art on a shelf. They're not even little. They're 1/6 scale, which is like anywhere from like 11 to 13 inches depending on the height of the character. But it's just really cool, and it gives me like this adrenaline boost when I look at my shelf and I see the characters I have and the poses they're in. Anyone who collects can definitely relate. It's just nice to have. It's nice to see. And you know, it's realistically, it's all I buy. I used to like collect Lego and action figures and Hot Toys and other things, and it's like that was draining my bank account. But when I decided that I was realistically only gonna collect Hot Toys now, like I pretty much stopped buying Lego. I stopped buying Funko Pops and action figures and anything outside of that. I just buy Hot Toys as the thing I collect. And once I decided to do that, it actually got really easy to like save for them, because they only release like one figure like every couple months that I want. So at that point, I've saved up enough. I've saved up enough to get that figure, while I also have money to live. So it's become very easy. But yeah, that's most of this episode. I have nothing more to say. I have like a really bad itch in my throat. I don't know what's going on. I might have to pause for a second. Okay, crisis averted. I got a nice raspberry bubbly. It's very tasty and nice. But anyway, I'm wrapping up this episode. Either way, it's a little bit shorter than I anticipated. Well, actually, no, it's about an hour, like the rest of my episodes. I don't know. It's very hard to fill time with one person, but I hope to get my friend Ben back on this, maybe some other people. But as of right now, this is mainly a solo podcast, so I'm only going to get better with time. But thank you for listening if you did. I appreciate it. Let me know what your movie guilty pleasures are in the comment section. And yeah, I also got some advice that at the end of these episodes I should ask for you guys to rate it 5 stars and give me a nice little review so that people can find this. So if you want to do that, cool, I appreciate it. If you don't, cool, that's fine with me too. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Remember to follow me on all the socials. My personal account is Brandon MYT everywhere. It's BRANDN MYT on all platforms. And then you can follow the Good for Nothing podcast on Instagram, and I still have to make a Twitter. I don't know if I'll ever make that Twitter, but if I do, it'll be at Good for Nothing Pod on both of them. So yeah, and remember to check out my YouTube channel. That is the main thing that I am focusing on right now. That is my main pride and joy, the love of my life. So yeah, check that out, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see ya.